Hi, my name is Helena Hallberg, and this video is a little different than my usual tutorials because this is a beginner's guide to finding a mountain dulcimer. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I get this question so often, and I love talking about it and making videos about it, but I wanted to make a long form video to make sure that if you are a little lost in where to find your first mountain dulcimer, you can just find this video and hopefully it'll help you. So finding the right dulcimer for yourself is an extremely subjective experience. We all have different preferences, and especially considering the faceted history of this dulcimer and its use in passing music from one generation to another, there have been a lot of types of dulcimers, and there's all kinds of woods and all kinds of strings and shapes. But what matters the most is that you love it and that it gets you excited to learn to play the dulcimer. It is pretty important to, first of all, differentiate between the hammered dulcimer and the mountain dulcimer. You'll notice a lot of people just use dulcimer for both of them, and they are related and they are taught together, and dulcimer players do consider themselves as part of one community in one way or another, but the instruments are very different. The next thing I want to talk about is the different shapes of the dulcimer. This is my very first dulcimer. This is a teardrop shape. This one is the more traditional hourglass shape. This is the current one I use. And the difference is really not that big. They just have different sounds, but things like wood and strings and size will affect that as well. To give you a quick sound nerd rundown, this one has a much bigger lower end because obviously the resonator is towards the low end, versus the hourglass has a little bit more of a balanced sound, but it can also sometimes lack a little bit of depth. So it really depends on what you like, what you have access to. Some also say that having the hourglass shape in your lap is a little more balanced versus the teardrop shape, but I played on this one for a long time. This was my favorite for a very long time. There's also the double-necked dulcimer, which is incredibly impressive, and artists like Bing Futch play these masterfully. I am not brave enough for that. The other important thing to note is the fret spacing. The traditional diatonic dulcimer looks like this. You'll see the frets are not evenly spaced like on a guitar because this is a diatonic instrument, which means that if you play up this fretboard, you're going to get a diatonic major scale, which coincidentally is also what makes this instrument so incredibly easy to learn and play. That is the big difference between a dulcimer and a guitar. A guitar is traditionally chromatic, where a dulcimer is diatonic. And one last thing I'll say is about electric dulcimers. This one is an electric dulcimer. I even have a little EQ panel here on the back that I can adjust levels. This is absolutely not necessary, especially when you're first starting out. I go on tour a lot and play a lot in situations where I am very grateful to be able to plug in. But generally, especially if you'll be playing this instrument in folk circles, at jams and things like that, nobody expects you to plug in anyway. So that being said, if you're interested in it, this is a full craft. I know McCafferty Dulcimers also make electric models. All right, let's get you a dulcimer. I want to give you just a few bullet points of things that maybe you should look out for if you see a dulcimer or you're comparing dulcimers or you don't really know which one to go for. Here are a few things to look out for. So there's lots of different kinds of wood for dulcimers. There's also even cardboard dulcimers, and all of those things are completely valid, especially when you're first starting out. I've taught many a workshop on the cardboard one-string dulcimers. They work perfectly well. But if you're looking to purchase a wood one, there are lots of different types of wood that make the dulcimer sound different. Some common woods are walnut, cherry, spruce, cedar, redwood topped. If it's a darker wood, it might be walnut or cherry. This one is spruce, which is super bright, and that was on purpose. That was something I wanted on purpose to have a really bright sound. However, the body is made of rosewood, which is a darker sound, and if you can see the purple hue, my fretboard is actually made of purple heart, which honestly, I just kind of thought it looked pretty cool. There are also whole kits you can purchase if you want to build the dulcimer yourself. There's cardboard dulcimer kits, there's wood dulcimer kits. This is a very accessible instrument for a lot of reasons. So these kits are really cool. There are different people that make them. I'll put some links below for my favorite dulcimer builder kits. VSL, if this is something you're reading in a lot of the descriptions on the dulcimers, that stands for vibrating string length. Now this isn't much different than it is on a guitar. All you need to know is that a longer fretboard will lead to you having to go further distances, so if you have smaller fingers or maybe don't want to work so hard, a shorter VSL might be the thing for you. One thing you've probably been seeing are dulcimers with 3 strings, dulcimers with 4 strings. Now if I take my other dulcimer, you'll see that this one has 4. This is a very typical headstock, very classic headstock. The reason this one has 4 is because I have the melody string, which is the highest string, twice. The reason these are traditionally made that way is because that is the melody string. That is the string that you play your melodies on. And so doubling that string led to a really cool mandolin-y sound. I used to play with 4 strings all the time. I downsized to 3 because I usually use the dulcimer as an accompaniment instrument. So I don't really have use of the melody string as much as pickers, for example. The last thing I'd say is maybe keep an eye on what the tuning pegs are made of. Some prefer wood tuning pegs. It's also easier to tell when the string is popping. Personally, I like the metal ones, but they both have their own advantages. So the cool thing about this instrument, and the reason why I fell in love with it so much, is that it is a very communal instrument. This instrument traditionally was used to bring music from generation to generation, so it has a massively long handcrafting tradition, which is good for you and me because that means that it is pretty likely that you might find one on places like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or even your own attic if your grandma or your grandfather or anyone in your family built a dulcimer at one point in time. So keep an eye and ear out, tell your relatives. Somebody's gonna know the dulcimer, and I guarantee you somebody's gonna know somebody who built a dulcimer at some point that I'm sure they'd be happy to share with you. If you're looking to get a dulcimer from an established dulcimer maker who has brand recognition or whatever you wanna say, these are also small to mid-sized luthiers. That's what's so cool about this instrument is that the community is so tight. If you ever go to a workshop or a festival, they actually come and show their dulcimers. They're very involved in the community, and they love this instrument just as much as you and I. Some of the larger dulcimer makers include McSpadden, Fullcraft, Cedar Creek, McGafferty Dulcimers, or Mountain Made Music. There's obviously tons more, but like I said, these are small to medium-sized luthier operations that sometimes have wait lists as well. But you can always reach out to them and see what their stock is and find something that's right for you. The bonus thing I'd like to say, which I kind of touched on before, but do not sleep on the community resources of this instrument. It is a tight-knit, very open, welcoming community, and I'm extremely grateful to have interacted so much with so many different people. I'm going to make a separate video on community resources for learning the dulcimer because there are so many. But even when you're first finding your dulcimer, there are Facebook groups, there are Reddit pages that will help you find a dulcimer and will welcome you into the community if that's what you want. Thank you so much for joining me for this little video. If you have any questions, please pop them below. Don't forget to subscribe if you're interested in more tutorials and more resources relating to the Appalachian dulcimer.